What is going on, YouTube? It's Tyler from Mission VR, where it's my mission to bring you guys good quality VR content. So first things first, you topped into some of my other videos. You looked, you said, hey, I haven't found a game that I'm really digging yet. Okay, well, you came to the right place, because today's video, I have the top 3 games in every single genre across the board that you can get right now on your Meta Quest, Oculus Quest, whatever you want to call it, right? We're going to be talking about 3 games in every genre, and just for reference, here's some of the genres we got going on. We've got PvP shooters, we've got action-adventure shooters, we've got zombie shooters, we've got RPG games, we've got sword fighting games, we got racing games, sports games, rhythm games, you name it, I got the genre, it's on here. If I missed a genre, please let me know in the comment section. And if there's a game in any of these genres that I didn't mention that you guys love, I want to hear it. Leave it in the comment section below. I like to read those, I like to respond to those. It's just enjoyable. I like to engage with the VR community. I think we're all really on the frontier of this thing and really loving it. So yeah, that being said, guys, drop a like on this video, subscribe to my channel. We are closing in on 16K. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for the love and support you guys give me. Check out, I do have some hardware, some Amazon links for different Quest accessories in the description below. So make sure you guys do check that out. But without further ado, let's hop on into our first genre here. Okay, so we're going to start out here with PvP shooters. Now, obviously, if you're a PvP fan, you enjoy player versus player combat. And shooters are a great place to start, as there's some really, really quality ones. And the number 1 pick for me here is Population 1. Population 1 is my favorite VR game of all time. It's probably my favorite video game of all time. It's just an incredible social experience as well as a competitive VR atmosphere. It's just a game so smooth. It runs amazing. It's a really solid title. I absolutely cannot say enough good things about Population 1. Next up here in this PvP shooters, Contractors. Contractors is an incredible game as well. The gunplay is really solid. The reloading feels really satisfying in this game. Sounds are great. Call of Duty style loadouts. Plus, it's got mods, and the mods are awesome. You can go into World War II type shooter games. You could play Halo maps. You could play Call of Duty maps. Contractors has some really incredible mods to it, and it's a really fun game. Lastly, for PvP shooters here, for my top 3, I got Hyperdash in here. Hyperdash is an incredible game I put a lot of hours into. Just really enjoyed the atmosphere and the competitiveness of this game. There's not really any loadouts. The weapons are random throughout the map, but overall, the gameplay is just a ton of fun. There's enough game modes, and some of them can get pretty sweaty out there, and it's just a really, really enjoyable game. All right, here for our next genre, we have action-adventure shooters. Now, this is basically games that may have multiplayer or not, but overall, just games that are more focused on the single-player story. And first up, I have Medal of Honor Above and Beyond. I loved this game. It was controversial. Not a lot of people, I shouldn't say that. A lot of people did love this game, but there were definitely some criticisms of this game, and some of them were fair, no doubt about it, and some of them I think are still fair. But overall, the game's still really fun. Basically, had an amazing World War II set pieces. It hit basically every major trope it needed to hit for World War II and allowed you to do it in VR. Really enjoyed this title overall. I still think it's worth picking up. We also have here in the action adventure shooters, the Espire series. Now, the Espire series, Espire 1 and Espire 2, both really good, solid action, stealthy type shooter games. The story's not the best I've ever seen in my entire life, but it's certainly good enough to keep you immersed, and the gameplay loop is pretty fun in these games. It's just overall an enjoyable experience. I think the Espire series is a really fun action adventure shooter style game. And lastly, here for action adventure shooters, we have Sniper Elite in VR. Now, this is a World War II sniper game that has some other gunplay mechanics in it. But overall, I think what really highlighted it for me in this game was the gameplay felt really good. The graphics were really solid. And again, it just did a good job of, hitting some World War II type tropes in the Italian war stage era. It's just overall a really good game. I enjoyed it, and I think it's worth picking up. All right, with our next genre here, we have zombie shooters. Now, this had to be a category of its own because there just are so many shooter games in VR, because shooters just work so well in VR. And really, the first one I want to talk about is After the Fall. After the Fall is without a doubt the best zombie shooter in my opinion. Again, it's a co-op multiplayer game with some loot and mechanics of the such. It's a really, really good game. I just loved After the Fall. Graphics are good, gunplay is fun. There's some customizations of your guns. You can unlock cool skins by how many zombies you kill, how many runs you do, legendary loot. Of course, it's a looter shooter with zombies in VR. It's a really solid title. I can't say enough good things. Next up in our zombie shooters, we have Resident Evil 4. Now, Resident Evil 4 did get some updates to it, so it now has a horde mode as well as the original Resident Evil game, and it all works really well in VR. It's kind of a horror game to some extent. You know, if you ever played the original Resident Evil 4, it definitely had some moments of tenseness, and in VR, those moments of tenseness are only enhanced. So, Resident Evil 4, really fun zombie shooter, and, you know, it has more than just zombies in that game. It's kind of a, you know, a pseudo Resident Evil game, or true Resident Evil game, I should say. And finally, for our last zombie shooter here, we have the Walking Dead series. I call it the series because Chapter 2 comes out in December 1st here, so that's right around the corner. And the Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, the first one, was a really solid title, so I definitely keep my eye on Chapter 2. It hasn't been confirmed whether you had to play Chapter 1 or not yet. I doubt it. It's probably a standalone game that just says Chapter 2, right? So overall, the gameplay we have seen from it, though, looks really good. Looks like they've expanded upon everything that made the first game so great, except for they didn't add multiplayer, so that kind of sucks. But it is what it is. It's still going to be a really solid, awesome, physics-based, deep, you know, really true AAA zombie experience. Okay, moving on to our true action and adventure games here. First up, I want to talk about The Wizards, the series, and really particular Dark Times I really enjoyed. But the Wizards games are amazing. If you pick them both up in a bundle and you play through both of them, you're going to have a really solid, fun, you know, 10 to 12 hour experience. And the games are just they're just great. The set pieces are amazing. The spell casting is really fun. You just go through this adventure, and it's one of those ones you look back on, and you're like, man, I was really immersed in that story and that you know, that fantasy universe I was in. I was really having a good time. The Wizard series is really amazing and definitely worth your action. Next up, we have Resist here. Resist is a open world game where you kind of fling around a city with guns and various things and fight against robots. What makes this game so fun is that there are some puzzles in it. It's open world. You get to really fly around the city like a superhero, and of course you're shooting robots with guns. The game's smooth. The graphics work really well. It's just a really fun action adventure game with a decent story to it. I really like this game, and this game also has the ability to role play a little bit because you're just fighting robots and you can kind of make up your own story. So overall, really fun game. And finally, with our last one for action and adventures, we have Warhammer Age of Sigmar. I really enjoyed my playthrough of Warhammer Age of Sigmar. I thought that some of the set pieces were really amazing. The game lasted just long enough for me to really enjoy it. And, you know, there were some RPG elements with upgrading your different spells and weapons and various things of the such. Overall, really enjoyed this title. I thought it was one of those kind of sneaky ones that didn't get a lot of attention, but I think it's absolutely worth your time. If you're looking for a good action adventure game, it's going to, you know, take you about 8 or 10 hours to complete. Next up, we have RPG games here, and RPG games definitely are lacking on the Quest for sure. What is there? There's some okay ones, and we're going to start with Demeo. Now, Demeo, I really enjoyed Demeo, and there's been a lot of content added since I originally played the game. And overall, I really definitely enjoyed this. Tabletop game, has some great animations to it. I think there's some things they could have done better in this game, but overall, if you enjoy any type of tabletop RPG games, you know, with a little bit more, or really top-down games, there's a lot of those type of RPG games out there. This game is going to probably suit you, and you're going to put some hours into it. And if you love that, then this is the best of the bunch when it comes to tabletop games. Next up, we have Ancient Dungeon. Now, Ancient Dungeon is a kind of more of a roguelike type game where, you know, you go through these dungeons, you get your loot, you know, you go and get chests and all that stuff. It's got more of a Minecraft-y style graphics to it. It's overall just, it has a lot of content there because they didn't have to invest a ton in the graphics. I really enjoyed Ancient Dungeon. I think it's a fun game. I think if you're looking for something a little more realistic, this might not be it for you, but there's definitely plenty here within Ancient Dungeon to definitely enjoy this title. And lastly, for RPG games, we have Bone Lab. Now, I put Bone Lab here because I really didn't have anywhere else to put it on this list, and that kind of sucks. But overall, Bone Lab, I guess I could put this as an RPG game only because there's just so much potential in this game to really do whatever you want and really role play into a character or a scenario, especially with the mods. You can just do so many different things into it, and I think that's really the core of an RPG game, right? It's called a role-playing game for a reason. You want to be able to role play. Bone Lab allows you to role play in a lot of different scenarios, you know, with all the mods and different things like that. All right, moving on here to our survival games. First one I want to talk about is Into the Radius. Into the Radius is just such a fantastic game. It really is. It's in my opinion, it's the best survival game that's on this list. Just overall, the inventory management is fantastic. The ability to go out into the world and plan your runs out in the world, just really, really good overall. Managing your weapons, it's just, the game just has so many little minor details that really make it amazing, and it definitely has a factor to it where, like, you have to prepare and do things a certain way. And I think that's so key in a survival game. Like if you're going to go on a raid or a run, you have to make sure you're prepared for the right circumstances. And this game throws some wrenches at you that you got to be prepared for. I really enjoyed Into the Radius. Next up, we have Green Hell. Now, Green Hell is a foresty type survival game where you're going to be, surviving in a jungle-esque environment with, mad lunatic natives on the run, as well as tigers that'll be chasing you down, and a load of other ailments you're going to have to be dealing with. Green Hell works pretty well in VR. It's not quite as full as the PC game, but it definitely has some cool mechanics, and you get to see all your arms and pull leeches off your arms and wrap your arms in leaves if you're cut. It's just overall, it has some immersive mechanics to it that I think are really, really good, and it works well as a survival game. Our last survival game here is Cosmo Dread. Now, this is more of a survival horror type game, but it's a really solid title. It's from the producers of Dread Halls, which Dread Halls was one of the original VR kind of scare games, and it was really dreadful, honestly. It was a really scary game. And Cosmo Dread hits that where you're on an abandoned spaceship, basically, and you're being chased around the spaceship by Lord knows what, right? And it's one of those kind of games where you got to survive, and it's definitely a heart-wrenching experience, no doubt, but it's a good game overall, and that'll conclude the survival games. Next up, we have sports games, and the first game I want to talk about here is NFL Pro Era. This game, incredible. Finally, I've been waiting. I played football my entire life, and I also played quarterback, so it helps, playing this game gives you the feeling of playing football and actually being in the shoes of a quarterback. By far and large, is the best football game I've played in VR so far. NFL Pro Era is really, really fun. If you're a football fan, you got to get this game and experience what it's like to be out there. Next up, we have Echo VR. Now, I know this isn't a true sports game in the sense that there's no sport currently that is like this in real life, but I can't say that this isn't a sports game in the sense that it actually has created its own kind of sport, if that makes sense. It's a really solid game. It's a ton of fun to play with friends, and if you get good at the game, there can be some really tense matches at Echo VR. Definitely recommend that one. And finally, we have a game that's actually on App Labs. This is not actually on the store. You have to go and search this one on the App Labs app, and that is Blacktop Hoops. Now, Blacktop Hoops is exactly what it says it is. It's a basketball game. The graphics and the mechanics work really well in it, and I think it's probably the best basketball experience I've had on VR up to this point. It's a really solid and fun experience. So if you like basketball, I definitely can't say enough good things about Blacktop Hoops, as there's really not a lot of other good basketball VR experiences out there. All right, moving on to our puzzle games list here. Now, I'm not usually a big puzzler, but there are a couple games that I've played that I think are really solid. And Red Matter 2, and really, well, Red Matter, the series, is just so good. But Red Matter 2 just blew me away. It really did. The graphics blew me away. The puzzles blew me away. There's some combat moments. The story, it was just so good. It was overall so good. Can't say enough good things about the Red Matter series. Of course, I Expect You to Die, the entire series. There's 3 I Expect You to Die games. All of them are really good. All of them have, some fun puzzle mechanics, and they're all highly rated. Definitely a fun experience. And there's the newest one out is Home Sweet Home, where you actually get to play it in your house if you have the pass-through mode going. So interesting experience, no doubt. And lastly, for our puzzle games, we have the Moss series, which is Moss and Moss Book 2. Now, this is the story where you're taking a little mouse on an adventure and basically, going through this world and completing a story with him. And it's overall just it's an immersive experience. It's not a first-person experience, which is kind of disorienting, and it may not be for everybody, but overall the game is still almost like you're playing with toys, and both the stories are really good and just it's an enjoyable escape from reality, and I think that's all we could ask for, in virtual reality, of course. So, but Moss is really good and definitely worth your time. All right, so next up we have flight sim games, and there's not a ton of these that are on the Quest, and I really wouldn't even call these sims because they're definitely not simulator games. They're more just flight tailored games. Those sims are really pretty much predominantly on PC, but these are flight related games. And first up we have the Ultra Wings series. This includes Ultra Wings 1 and Ultra Wings 2. I probably would pick up 2 over 1 at this point. But overall, Ultra Wings 2 is basically just a sandbox, flying game where there's some races, and, you're going to be able to use your gun to shoot at balloons, dogfight with people, go on missions to bomb warships. There's all kinds of different things going on in this game. It's more of a sandboxy type game. It definitely doesn't have a streamlined story. There's multiplayer involved in it. overall, yeah, there's just a bunch of things going on Ultra Wings here. But I can't say enough good things about World War I Warplanes. Now, I personally, if I were to pick up any of these games, it'd be one of the Warplanes games, whether that being World War I Warplanes or Warplanes Over the Pacific, which is the other pick on this particular flight sims section here. Both the Warplanes games are really, really solid. I really enjoyed World War I Warplanes. Being able to pull out that flare gun and when you're dogfighting and just shoot somebody over the side of your plane. What a great experience that was. Just really enjoyed that one. And of course, there is a new game coming out from the developers of Warplanes called Covert Heli Squad Covert Ops. So you're going to be actually in helicopters, which I'm definitely excited for. So there's lots of customization in these Warplanes games, and you know there is some online multiplayer and different things, but overall really exciting, enjoyable titles. I definitely can't recommend Warplanes, both World War I or Warplanes specific enough. Okay, moving on to our rhythm section here, rhythm genre, right? Now, first things first, I'm going to start with Pistol Whip. I think Pistol Whip is an incredible game. It's a lot of fun. Really makes you feel like John Wick as you're moving through some of these environments, ducking and diving and shooting everybody. And, you know, it feels really good. Some of the sounds, you know, when it comes to the actual music, incredible, as well as you can customize the gun sounds and your guns. It's overall really good game. I definitely enjoy Pistol Whip a lot of fun. Synth Riders is another one. Synth Riders is actually a really solid experience. And just this game, I can't even explain just what makes it so fun, but it just feels like, really, it feels like you're riding the wave, right? Like that's the point of the game. It's a good, solid experience. And in my opinion, both of those games are better than the third game on this list, which is Beat Saber, which I think is the most overrated VR game of all time, by the way. I really do. I really think it is the most overrated VR game of all time. I don't know why there's this hysteria around Beat Saber. Still, to this day, like it's not that good. Like it's okay. It's an average VR game. I don't know, but it's got to be on this list because everybody still loves it. So if you are looking for a rhythm game, you know, it might be worth doing your own investigation, but personally for me, Beat Saber is not it. All right, moving on here to our racing games category. First up, I want to talk about Dash Dash World. Now, Dash Dash World is a really fun racing experience where it's kind of like Mario Kart, but its own IP, if that makes sense. And you're going to have your motion controllers and you're going to be throwing things at other carts. You're going to be shooting at other carts. You're just going to be blowing other people up while you're on the racetrack. So it definitely has that Mario Kart vibe to it. And it's really exciting. There's over 13 unique tracks right now. You can race up to 8 people. There is an offline mode, and just overall the fun factor in this game is definitely pretty high. And you know, being able to shoot at other people while you're driving and then you blow them up and you win the race, really fun time. All right, next up for racing games here, we have Deathlap. Now, Deathlap I really like because this is kind of like, it reminds me of that one movie, and I can't remember the name of it, but they basically it had Bruce Willis in it, where they had to race around the prison and they were shooting at each other and like blowing each other up and stuff. Basically, that's kind of what this game is in VR. It's really a fun experience. You know, you're gonna have all kinds of crazy weapons on your vehicle of choice, and you're just gonna be blowing up other people and basically you're gonna be driving to survive in this game. It's an exciting racing experience, and I think it adds more than just the classic race where you're gonna be able to pull out guns and shoot at people while you're driving, and that's always a fun time in VR. All right, lastly here in our racing category, we have Runner. Now, Runner is more of a Tron style type game, and it is brought to you by Truant Pixel, who also did 2MD Football, which was a really solid VR football game. But Runner is basically, you're gonna be riding a Tron type of motorcycle and on a massive highway system and just be shooting at other people and going through an action adventure type of game while on a motorcycle. So definitely a cool experience. It's absolutely worth looking into if you're into that type of VR racing environment. All right, and finally here we have our last category is sword fighting games. Now, the top 3 sword fighting games, we're going to start with, Swordsman VR here is a really solid streamlined sword fighting kind of experience. You're going to have all kinds of different things going on in this game. You're going to be in a gladiator arena. You could fight on a pirate ship. There's going to be some wizard action going on. There's just all kinds of tropes that it hits with, sword fighting aesthetics. And the game does it really well. The combat feels like Blade and Sorcery, but less sandboxy. It's like I said, it's more streamlined than Blade and Sorcery is, but overall, really solid game. We also have Blade and Sorcery, of course. You can't forget Blade and Sorcery. It's a great sword fighting game, open worldy type. I shouldn't say open world, but it's a sandboxy type game, and just a really fun experience. The physics-based combat is really good. It's probably the overall best realistic sword fighting game. Plus the mods really just make it amazing, and it's just a really solid, good overall sword fighting game. And lastly, cannot forget, probably my favorite sword fighting game I've ever played. That is Until You Fall. Until You Fall is just a fantastic game. It made it under the top 10 games list for a reason. It's just so good. The replay value is so good. The weapon styles, the play styles, the difficulty, the music, all of it. It's just a 10 out of 10 game. It's one of those ones you're like, why haven't you developed another one already? Like, please develop more. Until You Fall is a really, really solid, really good sword fighting game, and you will definitely enjoy it if you pick it up. Well, guys, that is it for today's video. I hope you guys found a game that you like in your specific genre. I did list 3 for every single genre. I don't know. Maybe those are the top ones for me. Maybe they're not for you. I want to hear what you guys think in the comment section. Please do let me know what your favorite games are. If there's a specific genre that you love and then there's a game that I missed, I do want to hear about it. So drop that in the comment section below. Also, hit that like button. It really does help the channel out. Subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.